Thank you for watching today. This is Kinnear. Welcome to another Starfield video, this one for new players. When you create your first character in the game, you are asked to complete 3 customization sections. The first, how your character looks, is easy and a lot of fun, and easy to change later. The second, choosing your background, comes with almost no real information, and it's before you'll ever see the skill tree. The decisions you make here will impact how the game plays right off the bat, and if you need to backtrack later, and spend your valuable time earning more skill points to make up for early mistakes. In this video, I'll share what I wish someone had told me before I started my first character. That includes which skills can be useful, what you can leave for later, and what background really means. So let's get started so we can get you to the point where you're killing pirates, looking great doing it, and you've got skills you like. So just to be very clear, I'm going to jump ahead now and show you the skill trees that are going to be available after you complete the character customization. We'll come back to the character customization after I review the skill trees with you first. So the example I'm going to show you is a soldier. And what that means is he has 1 point in fitness, 1 point in ballistics, and 1 point in boost pack. Depending on the role you choose later, you will have 3 different points in different places. But I'll use this as an example to demonstrate how the points are applied and how the challenges work. They'll be different for you based on your role. So if you open up your character menu and you go to the skills section, the first time you open it, you'll get this little box that's going to give you some insight into how this works. For every level, you get a point. Each time you unlock a skill, you get a challenge. You have to complete some activities before you can unlock the next rank. Each row in the skill tree, which you haven't seen yet, requires that you complete the row above it to some extent. You have to spend points to get to the next row down. There are 5 primary categories: physical, social, combat, science, and technology. Each one of these has its own skill tree, if we want to call it that goes from the top to the bottom. You'll see there are 5 skills in the first row of each one of these, and then there are fewer skills as you go down. You can select each to see a description. Each one you can put up to 4 points in. The social tree, the combat tree, the science tree, and the technology tree. The second row in each tree, you'll notice, requires you've already spent points in the row above. In the physical tree, we already have fitness, so it says we need to spend 3 more points in order to get to the second row. In the social tree, we don't have any skills yet, so it says we need to spend 4 more points to get to the second row. The third row is 8 points total in the entire section. And the fourth row is 12 points total. Now keep in mind, you can spend 4 points for an individual skill, so it's not really as many items that you have to select. You won't be filling out everything in the tree. You'll just be spending your points in places where you would like to develop. So in some areas, you might spend 4 points. In some skills, you might only spend 1. But in each skill, you'll have up to 4 ranks. In this case, we don't have persuasion yet, so rank 1 is available to us just because it's on that first row. Now, we don't actually have any skill points if you look in the bottom left-hand corner. We won't get our first skill point that we get to choose until we level up. But if we were to choose rank 1, we would then get a challenge. After we did that challenge, which in this case would be to complete 3 successful persuasion actions, then rank 2 would become available, and it would say rank 2 available. And that process works the same for every skill across all the skill trees. In combat, we already have a point in ballistics, and you can see we already have a challenge in progress in the bottom left-hand corner. It says kill 20 enemies with a ballistic weapon. We haven't killed any enemies with a ballistic weapon, so it says 0 of 20. Once we kill 20 enemies, rank 2 will become open to us. That'll happen later. And assuming we have a skill point to spend, we could then have rank 2 in ballistics. But we don't have a skill point to spend right now. We have 1 point in tech for boost pack training. We should complete 10 boost jumps while in combat in order to complete this challenge. After we do that, rank 2 will become available to us. This is actually one of the easier ones to complete, and it's actually a very good one to pursue. So that's the skill tree. Now let's get back to the choices they're going to give you when you're customizing your character. So I've already customized this character, He's a bit of a scruffy nerf herder. Really just took a lot of the defaults. But as you can see, there are a lot of things you can change. When we get to the fourth tab, background, we're going to be presented with 21 different choices. Each choice comes with 3 specific skills pre-assigned, and you can't change those at this stage of the game. Now, the good news is these aren't irreversible issues. Even though you cannot unspend a skill point, you can always put points in skills that you decide later are things that you would rather have. So even if you make a decision now and you think, oh, well, one of those points I don't really want, but I like the other 2, it's perfectly okay. You may not have all the combinations that you're interested in. So the issue is you're being asked to pick a background that drives 3 free skill points before you've actually seen the skill trees. We've shown you the skill trees so far, so let's talk about the backgrounds and what they might mean to you. One of the first questions I think is worth considering is how you play games like this. Are you willing to use save and restore tactics in order to complete some activities, or is that something you try to avoid? Some of the skills that you can choose are very easy to manipulate if you're willing to save and restore. Perfect examples of that are stealth, lockpicking and security, and persuasion. So if you know you're going to do a persuasion check, you can do a quick save beforehand. You can do the persuasion check. If it doesn't work out for you, you can restore, and you can try it multiple times that way. If that's not the way you like to play, you may want to put points in those areas early and develop those skills early so that you're good enough to pass them without using save and restore. No judgment from me on how you play the game, but it does impact whether you want to prioritize certain skills early on. You can always get them later. That's the good part. The second question worth considering, especially after the May 2024 update with the new gameplay options, is how do you feel about the gameplay options? Are you willing to change the difficulty of the game in order to accommodate your play style as well? A good example here is if you are willing to change your carry capacity so that largely your carry capacity doesn't impact you early on in the game, then you may not need to focus on skills like weightlifting. When the game first came out, weightlifting was a very critical skill to have up front, and therefore you could value it pretty highly, knowing you would eventually max it out. If you're going to change the gameplay options so that you have additional carry capacity, you can take that skill almost off the table immediately and put those points in someplace else, or just prioritize some other way. In all these cases, there really aren't wrong decisions. If you like the play style and if you like the background, then it's the right decision for you. So I'm going to share a table with you that I've created that lists the 21 different backgrounds that are offered in the game. It also lists the 5 major categories of skills and the 5 individual skills that are part of these predefined backgrounds. So on the left-hand side of the table is the tier ranking, the category, the skill. Along the top are the individual backgrounds, or I'll call them roles, as in RPG role-playing roles. Along the bottom are what I consider to be key archetypes: Star Wars, damage, stealth, explorer, melee. One of the reasons I call these roles and not just backgrounds is because this entire question is kind of an RP, role-playing question for you. The skill points are available to you. When you play the rest of the game, you'll accumulate levels and you can put points in all these places. So if you pick something right now because you think it fits the way you want to play the game, that's great. It's not going to severely impact you going forward. You can always make up for it later. The only real question is whether you'll spend a little extra time making up for some points that you decide later you didn't want. There are no perfect answers here. What I do find in the way I categorize these, and if you look at the top, I have 4 in the blue, I have 7 in purple, and then the rest of these are in black. The blue ones are the ones that I tend to prefer, and they line up with the tier ranking. So if I look at the physical category, I ranked fitness, stealth, and weightlifting as A's. Under the social category, persuasion was the only A I chose. Under combat, ballistics was the only A. Under science, surveying and astrodynamics were A's. And under technology, I have 3 of them listed in the S tier: boost pack, pilot, and security. I identify boost pack, pilot, and security because those are skills that almost all players in the game have to master at some level. The boost pack is critical to getting around throughout the game. Piloting is a skill that almost every player does advance unless you really are going to ignore ships. The piloting skill allows you to capture and fly, or buy and fly, the highest level ships in the game once you get to rank 4. You will also be killing several enemies in ships during the first couple of missions as you start the game, so if you choose something with piloting now, you will be advancing towards rank 2 pretty quickly before the game even really gets started. The security skill is essentially the lockpicking skill. You will have many opportunities in the first 2 areas of the game that you'll be guided through to pick locks. And if you choose a background or a role that has the security skill, you will be advancing against the security challenge to get from rank 1 to rank 2. In the combat section, ballistics represents the most common form of weapon in the game. One of the interesting things I'll note is I've categorized Bounty Hunter and the Space Scoundrel both as what I see as Star Wars style archetypes. The Bounty Hunter's kind of obvious. The Space Scoundrel kind of feels like Han Solo to me. The idea that a persuasive individual with a pistol skill and piloting skill can be one of your first choices can be very appealing. Under social, persuasion is something that's going to come up again and again in the game. You will have persuasion challenges. The sooner you start to develop persuasion, the better, but frankly, you won't be persuading anybody in the first 2 introductory areas until you get to the lodge and move on to other quests, so it might not be as important. Skills like surveying and astrodynamics are great skills to have in the game, but they're probably not going to be very useful and you won't be advancing them through the challenges as you start the game right off the bat. And then finally, even though the fitness category is in 4 different roles and O2 consumption is an issue when you're running around in the game, it's not going to be much of an issue for your first few levels as you're advancing and moving towards the lodge and the city of New Atlantis. So in my estimation, the roles of Bounty Hunter, Space Scoundrel, Soldier, and Cyber Runner have more of the skills that are immediately useful and that you can start to level up right off the bat, especially if you'd like to roleplay in one of these primary archetypes. I think the 7 roles that are in purple, the Explorer, the Industrialist, Beast Hunter, Xenobiologist, Bouncer, Homesteader, and Long Hauler, I think those are interesting as well. And if you want to roleplay in that way, those are good choices. The others could be fun, but maybe for a second or third character. At least in my opinion. But ultimately, it's your game. And so if you decide you want to play in a specific role, choose that role. Work with the points that it starts with. You can make up for anything over time, and the game can be played almost indefinitely. The only thing to keep in mind is that when you do get a point in a particular skill area, you can never remove that point. That point will be with this character forever. Once you've selected your background, and the 3 points that you're going to get for free at the start of the game, the last section to complete are the traits. I'm not going to go through the traits in this video. It's worth understanding that these traits can be set one time for each playthrough. If you play through the entire game and you go into New Game Plus, you will be given an opportunity to reset these traits. You can erase your choices and have completely different choices if you go into New Game Plus. Within the game that you're starting at this point in time, you can remove most traits through some process in the game. You'll have to discover that individually, but you can't substitute traits. So if you choose a particular trait and you decide later on, I don't like the way that affects my game, I don't want that anymore, oftentimes you can go to a doctor in the game, you can go to another NPC in the game and have that trait removed, and they provide you with some mechanism like paying for it or something like that. Once you've removed those traits, you don't get a substitute and you just have whatever traits are left. So after you've customized the look of your character, you've selected your background, you've selected your traits, choose your name and whether you're going to be a he, him, or a she, her, and you're done with customizing your character. You'll be put back into the game at a point where you are coming out of your blackout after picking up the first artifact. So those are my recommendations after 1,000 hours of gameplay, spinning up maybe 8 characters and playing them through multiple New Game Plus iterations. There are no irrecoverable mistakes, and if you like the role or background just because you like the idea of playing that way, do it. The worst thing that can happen is you end up playing a little longer, grabbing a few more levels to get skills you choose later. That's all fun gameplay. If you're new and try this, let me know in the comments how it works out. If you're experienced or returning and have suggestions for others, please leave those as well. From here, listen to Lynn and Heller, head outside, shoot some pirates, and find your way out into the stars. Thank you for watching, I really appreciate it. Remember that what lies behind you, what lies in front of you, pales in comparison to what lies inside of you. It's never too late to be what you might have been. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe, and get notifications. This is Kinnear, and I'm out of here.